Okay, my spiritual babies, once more into the breach. Episode 3, duh, Herr Hitler. Ooh, what a sad character. What a sad character. Well, in this episode, again, we are trying to make psychohistory a thing again, bring it back into the historiography, intellectual history of history. And today we're going to talk about Herr Hitler. Ugh, what a sad character. Okay, so we're not going to go full Harry Shelton yet and Foundation because we can't use psychohistory to predict yet. But it is worth noting we can't predict all of history and all of history's mankind like Harry Sheldon did in the Foundation series. But we can use the field of psychology to help explain history. And today's topic, of course, is famous because it was the subject of a book, Hitler's Mind, which was the declassification of the original World War II commission study on predicting history, predicting what Hitler would do, and it was very successful in that it predicted that Hitler would not be caught and would commit suicide, which is no small thing, as other psychopaths like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. Gaddafi ran, and Saddam Hussein had to be pulled out of a spider hole before he could be by the United States Army before he could be hung. So it's no small thing when the original the analysis predicted that Hitler would be commit suicide, and then he did commit suicide, thereby validating all of psychohistory in its short, brief existence at that point. Of course, that study was commissioned by the OSS, or as George Bush would call it, the Office of Strategery, which was the pre-runner of the CIA. I'm going to use that joke every single time I say OSS. I'm going to do my George Bush imitation. And so we can't go full Harry Sheldon with psychohistory, but we can use psychology to analyze Hitler, and then history, and put them together, and find out what the common denominator is, and where we can go wrong and turn into a Herr Hitler, or where hopefully we can avoid it and not join the Nazi party. Be a smarty. Don't join the Nazi party. All right. Psychology. The psychology of Hitler. So Hitler was a psychopath. It's different from a sociopath. And a sociopath is a pathological disease of somebody who does not understand the sociology, the socializing of human beings. The psychopath is different. A psychopath is a normal person broken by something. And that's why it makes him so much more dangerous than a sociopath. Hitler was a psychopath. He was way more dangerous than a sociopath. So we don't know what broke him. One of three events broke his personality and turned him into the raving maniac that he was. Again, on that subject of what makes him different, the thing that makes a psychopath so much more dangerous is, and Hitler's the perfect example, is that yes, he could bully, terrorize, belittle, continually criticize, and horrifically treat people to get his way, but he could also inspire and cajole. There's a famous example of that in the Nuremberg trials. They played a Hitler rant, and they didn't translate it into German beforehand because as they're playing this rant, it was part of the good part of the speech, and the German officer and judge tears up and goes, "So it was a bad thing, to stop inflation and try and reinvigorate German economy?" They just happened to hit the wrong spot in the Nuremberg trial for the rant to use, instead of the crazier stuff about the racial blood and the purifying of the blood and all the rest of it, and the Lebensland, where they needed land to they had to invade all their neighbors to stretch out and extend the German race. They got the wrong end of the speech. But that's what made him so dangerous, was that he could also inspire. But before all that, before he became Hitler that we so despise, he was a person who went bad, and that's the psychology. When did he go bad? Well, we don't know exactly when or what it was that he went bad. We could probably narrow it down to one of three events. It could have been in World War One. He was a corporal, of course. He was, he won the Iron Cross, which is no easy thing to do. It's the highest German mark of bravery. So he was brave on the worst of possible wars in World War One in the trenches. He was injured. He volunteered to go back to the front. Again, yeah, I mean, at that point, you got to say he was brave. And then he's in the last. He's involved in the last successful action of the war, where the Germans are actually winning, and they successfully push forward against the Allies right before. In November, it's the last push, and right before the armistice is declared and Germany surrenders. But of course, he's successfully leading at the front, and the next thing you know, it's all taken away from him. Of course, from international jury, as we find out later. But it's at that time, that could have been the event that broke him. He then returns home. Obviously, if there's anybody who has PTSD, which we now know is actually a psychological condition, it's World War One veterans. But he goes to tries to be a painter. He fails both times that he tries. Goes to Vienna to establish himself as a painter. Is at least as in one of my favorite movies, notes that he can paint a whole flat 2 coats in one afternoon. He fails the first time. He fails the second time, and this is why I think his psychology, his psyche broke, and he became he became Hitler. But it may not have been. But Mrs. Hitler, of course, his mother, is dying from lung cancer. If anybody's had a mother die from lung cancer, that's really, really horrible. It's a very horrible death, very sad thing. But she's dying from lung cancer. Doesn't tell him. Wants her little Adolf to do well, and doesn't want her to be burdened with her death. And so she cobbles together all her money, and she sends him off for one more trip in Vienna to become a successful artist. And doesn't tell him about the lung cancer. She sends him off, and he goes off, only to find out that she dies from lung cancer, and comes back and is devastated, and then disappears into the wilds of the city of Vienna for 3 years as a homeless man, only to emerge, I think, like one time where, ironically and almost funnily, he's on a soapbox, ranting like the Hitlerian madman at the other people in his homeless shelter. But other than that, I mean, is that what broke him? The death of his mother, the 3 years of being homeless on the streets. Interestingly enough, we never know where he picks up his pathological hatred of Jews. But the third possibility would be he comes back, starts a movement. It would be in the beer pushed, which is he tries to take over the government. Famously caught, broken up. It's the insurrection, a real insurrection, by the way, not a fake one, is broken up, and he spends a year in jail where he writes Mein Kampf. Did he go crazy on that one? Did that break his psyche? Did that break his personality? Anyway, one of those incidents broke him, or all three of them together broke him, and then the next thing you have is the reemergence of the opposite of what his mom and he thought he was going to be, or the fulfillment of what he and his mom thought he was going to be. It's almost as if the insecurities broke so far that he became the opposite of that, which was the Superman, right? Proven as nothing but a failed corporal in a failed army, in a failed painter, losing his mom, wandering the wilds of Vienna as a homeless person, and then the final nail in the coffin is the failed beer push. Somewhere in that, it's almost like the psyche is broken. He emerges as the exact opposite. It's the insecurity going crazy, the little man's disease, flipped, and then as he makes his rise to Hitlerian evilness, evil greatness, evil horribleness. I don't think that you can be great and be evil, but he then becomes Hitler, and it's all of those that psychological broken. It becomes the common denominator, which I'm going to get to in a second. But I have to step back, and that's the psychology of Hitler, and talk about the history of Germany at that time. We had to do Darwin first because Darwin is so fundamental to where Germany was. So in Germany, in Germany World War II, the rise of Hitler, it's always been called the German question. How could one of the most advanced societies in all human history, leaders in education, leaders in hard science, leaders in economics, leaders in philosophy, the German people go so far off the rails into batshit crazy raving mania, Hitler raving mania. It's a German question. How can you have a society at the top go crazy? Well, the history of it is it's very interesting. Is that Germany was what I'm going to call it term it a zombie society, right? They use the term the zombie Jesus. Ooh, when Jesus comes back, the Christians worship a zombie Jesus. Now, of course, Jesus was a real living human being. He ate food on the beach. He cooked it. He deliberately ate it with the apostles on the road to Emmaus, so that they would know that he's a human being and not a ghost. Thomas put his fingers in his wounds. He cooked up some fish for all the apostles and Peter on the beach and ate with them. When he bugged Peter about, Peter, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Before he went off up into heaven. All to make the point that he's a real human being and he's not a ghost. But it's never failed to use that term, to take that term, the zombie Jesus. It was really a zombie civilization. It was a zombie society in the sense that it was hollowed out by by the religion of Darwinianism. And so Charles Darwin does does evolution, his version of evolution. There is no God. You don't need God. It's materialism. We're all apes. We're all animals. So you don't have morality. You don't have heaven and hell. That gets transferred across the channel to Germany by a particular odious clown boy by the name of Haeckel, who is the leading German evolutionist, and from there it gets spread into German intellectual scholarship and society, and becomes the basis for everything, from Haeckel's from meds from Haeckel's to Haeckel's nonsense to the German theology, where they remove they try and have German theology. Well, actually, German theology predates that. The German theology was the anti-Semitism actually predated that, and they were the German theology and the so-called skepticism, saying, "Oh, it's all a myth," and it was all an attempt to de-Jewify the Old Testament and the Bible, which is a really hard thing to do, because the Old Testament is all written by Jews, and most of the New Testament is written by Jews, and of course Jesus was a Jew. But if you take the Jew out of Jesus and the Jew out of Christianity, that's what early German theology was. Well, it created a zombie society, and so for the science, when Darwinian nonsense came over, and this is all going on at the same time. It replaced Christianity, the Christian religion, with the Darwinian religion, and Darwin's religion takes hold, and you get the philosophical expression of that, and Nietzsche, and you get the underpinnings of it through all of German society, and that is the answer to the German question. It's the same. You have this empty Messiah vision of the world. It's not in the far north, and it's definitely not in the south of Europe. It's just this middle zone. And so if you look at the old Roman Empire boundaries, Catholicism and strong Christianity was all within the Roman Empire, and then this is that level above. Either and it's the same in the east, same in the west in the German area as it is with Russia and the Eastern Byzantine Empire, being the analogy to the Catholics, and the Russians being the analogy to the Germans. It's this empty Messiah vision of history. So they're the empty. They're the chosen people. The Russians are the chosen people, and whoever the Russian Tsar is the empty Messiah. And in the western end of Europe, it's the same thing. It's the empty Messiah with Hitler stepping into that role, or whoever the socialist would be, and then the empty dogma, the nihilistic dogma, being the replacing Christianity. So in the whole of when as Christianity died, which because it never really fully took root in Germany, that the empty hole of religion was filled by Darwinism and the survival of the fittest. And it's in that so that you have all the great German advances on the back of the Westernness and Western tradition from Christianity, hollowed out in a couple generations, and then filled up with the religion of Darwinism. And that's where we get to the common denominator, because you can't understand Hitler without understanding his religion. And his religion was Darwinism. It's not Christianity. Christopher Hitchens would say, "Oh, of course Hitler was a Christian." No, he was not a Christian. And I like when he said it. I literally laughed my ass off. What's the number one reason why Hitler would never be a Christian? Could never stand Christians and Christianity, and hated it, and only glad-handed it, and talked up and perverted it and seduced it because he had to, because there were so many Christians still in Germany. Was what's the number one reason why Hitler would never be a consider himself a Christian or a follower of Jesus Christ? Well, it's because Jesus was a Jew and Hitler was a pathological maniac towards the Jews. He hated them. Duh. Hitchens was an idiot. I'm going to do one special psychological history on him too in a later episode, because he's instructive of the new atheist. But anyway, the common denominator that you understand Hitler is the intersection of the psychology, the broken psychology, and the history of the time is Darwinism, and it's the survival of the fittest, right? And so from that you get the materialistic fake Christianity called socialism. Oh, we're all in it. We're all in it for all the people. No, all the communists, all the socialists are just in it for themselves. There's just materialistic snake oil salesmen. They're selling to all their fellow human beings so they can be the ones in charge, and they steal everybody else's work. There's three things that make Hitler's Nazism. Socialism, the National Socialism is one of them. Then the second thing that makes it unique is Hitler's racial obsession with the Jews, and disgusted the improprieties of the German race because it interbreeds with the Jews. And then the third thing is the Furher principle, and they all make sense only if you understand Hitler as a Darwinian. And the reason why, so we'll take we've done the socialism. So the of course, Darwin looked at, the name of his book was The Origins of Species and the Most Favored Races, and he looked at the less favored races as being exterminated by the more favored races. Obviously, for Darwin, the highest race was the white Anglo-Saxon, and the Irish were the lowest of the races. And the only difference between him and Hitler being that for Hitler, of course, the German race was the apex race, and the Jews were the lowest, or the Irish, they were the lowest of the races. Eventually, both of them were exactly they both believe in the same material religion. And so that's how you get the triggering, as Jordan Peterson would say, of the disgust mechanism and the disease mechanism and the revulsion of Hitler, as he's talking about Jews as unclean, and the need to racially purify the German race. But that still only takes you part way. To understand Hitler, you still have to understand the Führer principle. And what's the Führer principle? Identified by historians very, very well. It's one of the things that makes Hitler unique is that he would brook no compromise. There was zero compromise. So he would never, ever compromise. In the beer push, that's how he failed in the beer push. He would never compromise to make it a Big Ten party. And there's a reason why he would never compromise. They called it the Führer principle about leadership, and there's only one way and his way. But there's a bigger reason, because just like he saw the survival of the fittest and the German race being the operating factor of history, and his being his religion and his philosophy and his touchstone, you take it to the next step. He saw that in the German race, he was the most fit. He was Nietzsche's Superman. He was the Ubermensch. He was the most fit of all the Germans, of the most fit race, which was the German race. That's why he would brook no compromise, and that's the secret. That's the underlying common denominator. That Darwinian idea of survival of the fittest, and he is the fittest, is the common denominator that lets you explain the movement of Nazism. And so now we've united the broken psyche of Darwin to the historical movement of Nazism, and then that filters down onto each of the adherents of National Socialists, as they are today, running around the United States of America, calling themselves socialists. AOC and company, and Bernie Sanders, they're more of the communist version of it, but it's the something of an evil, and it's the exact opposite. It's the exact rejection of Christianity, and for the sins of arrogance, of self-centeredness, of not everything the opposite of Jesus is. Instead of the Samaritan being racially impure, but better and as a neighbor, because he takes care of the poor victim beaten by a robber. No, it's the reversion back to that. The Samaritans were the impure Jews, and they were the Jews of their day. And for Hitler, the Jews were the impurity, and that they were the racially inferiors that needed to be expelled. And so it was returned to that. It was murder thy neighbor, envy thy neighbor, take thy neighbor's stuff. It was the arrogance of these insecure people like Darwin, who was never going to amount to anything. That's why he stole his idea, to the insecurity of a failed corporal painter. That then, as their personalities get broken, gets built up into this mythical creature that they have in their hero that they have in their minds, that then sparks evil movements, that then cause most of the bloodshed. No, I mean, not most. I mean, you actually have to say the communists did worse, but a lot of the bloodshed of 100 years, and a horror show. So that's the psychohistory for Herr Hitler. And of course, the lessons would be a smarty. Don't join the Nazi party. Your struggles can make you or break you. Hitler's struggles broke him and turned him into the raving psychopath, but there is hope. Your struggles can make you too. They can turn you as they did in Jesus if you follow, if you pray the rosary, contemplate the joyous mysteries, the luminous mysteries, and how our God was so humbled himself as to be born in the manger, to poor parents, to be a carpenter, to be a worker, and to show us the way out of hell, out of this vale of tears, into heaven. So you can be a zero like Herr Hitler, or a hero like our Lord Jesus Christ. And that will be the lessons for psychohistory in today's episode. So, my spiritual babies, it's all good, and we'll see you on the next one. I think the next one we're going to do is another poor, sad knucklehead, the biggest, Karl Marx. But it has to be done. Peace out.